Nice to see everybody. It's a privilege to be here. The future is smarter. As you said, I'm Lee Odess, the CEO of something called the Access Control Executive Brief. It's actually my full-time job is traveling around, meeting with companies and people, talking about access control and the trends and sort of I call it the today forward of where the industry is going. I don't call it the future because in a lot of ways that gives the legacy side of our industry an excuse of why it isn't happening. But I keep going all over the place and finding out all these things that we're talking about that are going to come happening. So this is a great example and a really good opportunity to have this type of conversation. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. And going to just dive into this idea around the future being smarter and having a conversation. And sometimes the hype of some of these things aren't necessarily met in the marketplace of the reality that's happening currently now, and in some areas they are. And what I like to say is that both of those are true. Both of those can exist at the same time. So although some of this stuff you might not hear happening in your marketplace currently now, chances are they are happening somewhere else. So we try to tie the two of those together so collectively the industry can move forward to take advantage of the great opportunity that we have as an industry, because there's no better time to be in the access control industry than now, because it's moving from a cottage industry of high security to a mainstream marketplace that builds off of that space that you all can command. Because I don't care how good the lattes are that you can order in an app inside of a building. If I don't feel safe and I'm not safe inside of it, I'm probably not going to go into it. So that's our advantage. But we as an industry need to get off our heels and onto our toes and telling our own story. The days of us isolating ourselves in the name of protection and safety and security and not having swag and not having marketing and knowing how to tell stories is over. We need to be able to do that, and it's our opportunity. If we don't, that oxygen will be sucked out of the room by an enterprise software industry that is ripe to take that advantage. And I would say the biggest impact of the IT convergence that's happening, it isn't the fact that we now can pull a blue wire and make everything be connected to each other and it's all going to be on the internet. It's the fact that there's a rabid group that moves very fast, I would call them apex predators, that have no problem taking our industry and making it a feature of their larger value proposition. But I don't think it's going to be as easy as they may think it is for them, and it's our opportunity. It's not fear-driven, it's opportunity-driven. So with that, what we'll do first, John, if you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself, talk about, as an SVP of Engineering, what that role does, and then we'll move on to the questions.
Absolutely. I feel as though I know you better than vice versa. I've watched a lot of videos. You know how it is. You see somebody over and over. It's like we're great pals, and you didn't even know it. So I think you guys heard earlier, Kumar gave a little bit on me. So I came from Rockwell, which came from a couple of acquisitions. Without going into that, the past 25 years, the vast majority of that has been focused on product development process for Fortune 500 companies, a pretty significant focus in the medical device space, so a mix of hardware, software, firmware, and everything, and all of the regulatory that goes along with it. There's 5-6 years that we're in there that we're really focused on actually taking these verticalized solutions, these bespoke systems that we were putting in for all the top med device companies, and then actually productizing those and then taking those out to the market and kind of rinse and repeat. So Kumar and a few others in the room, I had been there for 25 years, pretty happy. Never enough to have me go, and Thomas Gadea, he and I have worked together closely for the past decade or so, and he was pretty assertive in his pursuit and sales pitch as to why this would be a better place for me to land. It took a little while emotionally to get to that point. I guess I'm not as risk-taking as I had thought in my youth. I guess Steady Eddie is a little more what I actually am. But coming here to Acre really is it's fun. It's exciting. My wife asked if I regret it. She really encouraged me to come and said absolutely not. I'm actually having a really good time. I was talking to some former colleagues and nothing's changed where they were. Big companies move a little bit slower, and I'm able to help impact change in a positive way a lot more quickly. So the focus of what I'm trying to do is not be the foremost expert in access control. We have a lot of those people, Mr. Shillington, for example, right there. We don't need to repeat that. What I've prided myself on over the years is doing what you say, when you say, for how much you say, and the most important part is with the outcomes that you say, which will be a really interesting thing to work into this topic of AI and innovation and making sure that we have value behind what we're doing, not just doing something novel. Living in Colorado, by the way.
Yeah, we'll talk about when on some of these things too, just your best impression. So, but first, before we get into it, I saw the V announcement that you just did. First time I've seen it and heard about it. I really like the where intelligence meets access, that whole tagline. I really like that it frames it nicely. It's the same thing like with the VMS system. I saw the word of using smoother. Like there's purposeful words being used, which is really nice. But there were some words that you said too, just want to get clarity around them. So for everybody's sake, including mine, you use the term GenAI, you use the term agentic. You know, I hear all of the AIs along the way. Can you break down for me quickly, sort of in layman's term, what are the differences between them? What are the similarities, maybe how they bridge, whatever it might be?
Yeah, so GenAI is simply generate me new content that never existed before. So we can think like, write me a poem about access control, or draw me a picture of a horse. Like, that didn't exist before, it's generated, and then that's the end of it. When we add agents into the play, we actually give the agents power to make decisions. So that would be more like, don't write me a poem, don't draw me a picture of a horse, but go do everything that my customer support group used to do. And so, like, we could, a layer of agency or agents can build on top of Gen AI, though, especially text to text. So if we want to analyze some text, produce new text, and then ask the agent to do something significant, take action, it can act on your behalf. Agents have access to tools. They can be set free to go do what teams of humans used to do. That's sort of the breakdown.
So is it fair to say like VIA is a generative AI tool that has agentic capabilities? Is that like
That is absolutely fair. So, you know, our position is agents first. Agents are the future. I think there's a long horizon vision of very powerful agents, but we can even start with building blocks where the VIA agent has a few tools at its disposal on how to interact with the API, on how to display data, and you know that's the extent of it. We're starting with baby agents, but that's the foundation for bigger agents later on.
Okay, good. Thank you. That helped summarize it for me. And then you said limited in agency. What exactly does that mean?
If you have a great amount of agency, like that would be like go replace my customer support group. Like the agents or the team of agents might have so many tools and so many decisions they can make, like how they can respond to an incoming ticket, what action they can take on it, what do they do. In terms of limiting agency, we're going to say you can really only access our data in Acre Access Control this way. It's very parametric, you can't really mess it up, like we're going to guide you through that, and then you can sort of display the data in these ways that you're very instructed to do. Not a lot of free form to choose, like it has some choice, but not a lot of choice.
Okay, so it'll be limited in the ability it can do, pretty prescriptive.
In the decisions that it can make and the actions that it can take are very limited. They're only going to serve the like constrained purposes as we roll them out in terms of VIA.
Got it, okay. And then the other question I had was, understand it, how it works, right? It's like a sort of searching through versus just pulling reports out and then doing some formulation in Excel or whatever. So I see value in this sort of natural language conversation, like send me the reports from the past 10 days, whatever, like, right? But like, so simplicity, I get that. But can you, if you had to break down the value that it delivers now, but if you don't mind building it into a home a little bit that also provides for future value,
well,
how would you summarize it?
Yeah, for me, it's all about driving efficiencies. So if we look at even where the outside of physical security, where agents are today, it's about doing things faster than we can already do them today, so that we're freed up to do other things, use our creativity in other ways, and it elevates our ability where we don't have to be experts. Like to actually get door forced open and door held open data out of your access control system and display it is kind of a difficult task. Like you have to have specialists that can move the data, then visualize the data, right? So we drive efficiencies, we automate the mundane. It's not just about reporting, we're gonna do other things, but we're just gonna make it easier to do all of the things that help you solve problems when it comes to access control.
Got it. Okay, and then an overriding conversation about AI. So recently within our Slack group of the community that we have, there's a large conversation that was around AI being hype, incremental, like a fancy word on top of it, and real. How would you frame where we're currently at now with AI and your view of maybe where it's going? Is it real?
So there's a massive amount of hype, but it is real. Again, if you look at the signals from the greater market, I think, Mark Benioff from Salesforce, who wrote the book on SaaS, is now trying to write the book on agents. And there's this big theory that vertical agents are gonna displace SaaS. And we're seeing it happen today. Mark Benioff just announced that they're doing a massive reduction in customer support because they're rolling out real agents. So I would say it is very real. There are going to be people that fall victim to the hype and they just want AI for the sake of having AI. But it starts with understanding what problem you want to solve, saying no to the problems that aren't suited for agents, and saying yes to the problems that are suited for agents, and then understanding the traps and pitfalls of building agents at scale, how you do it reliably with high level of quality, observability. Those people will win in deploying agents. Agents will be real. They will be the way of the future, and we're seeing that right now.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just a quick poll of hands in here. How many of you use AI on a daily basis? Okay, good. That's a good amount. All right. Next part, it's called The Future is Smarter. So we wanted to just break it down. I actually wanted to break down the words specifically of the future is smarter and have a conversation between innovation on one side and AI on the other, sometimes seated under innovation, sometimes not. So we'll have a conversation around that. So if we say the future, by your expertise and understanding this, when do you believe will be in this future that we're painting around it being smarter? That's like the billion-dollar question, right?
Sure. So it's this is a difficult one. So Ralph and Jeff and I were spending time yesterday, kind of talking about progress versus innovation, the future, and that it's not really a black and white. It's not a Boolean, like something is true to be progress or true to be innovation, right? True to be the future. It's a gradient. At least that's my opinion. So I've had experiences where we've had near Black Mirror style futuristic solutions in search of a problem, and so I think in some ways that some of the folks in the room know about a project we did with a gas and electric utilities service provider in California a couple of years ago, and they were having an issue with just keeping the stock in the yard, and really the technicians not taking what they were supposed to, taking too much of what they were supposed to, and they never knew what they had. We went round and round and round and round on ways to combat this problem, and the solution that was decided upon and was driven actually by the client at this time was actually to take a bunch of Boston Scientific robots, and we modified those, both hardware, firmware, and everything, and had them actually prowling the lots and checking what people were doing, and then it can recharge itself, and I don't know if it, 2 weeks later, I think somebody mounted a rifle on one, and it really got to be a little Black Mirror-ish, and that felt like this really futuristic solution in search of a problem. I felt there were better ways to solve that problem. So it's hard to figure out when that is. You wake up one day and say, is the future today? I've got robot dogs now walking around my lot checking for things, but is that better, right? Is that a better future, right? And so I think it's important for us to be visionary, but also practical in our approach to applying things that, especially in an industry that isn't necessarily on the forefront of technology, right? There's good reason that this industry isn't going to be the earliest adopter of facial recognition technology. There are wrinkles that need to get ironed out before that happens. And so trying to figure out what date will be in the future and what the future means is it's a difficult question for me to answer, Lee. It is something that we pondered quite a lot, though.
Right. So, in summary, on that side, do you think it's gradient? We just sort of it just sort of blends with the.
That's how it feels to me. Yeah.
Okay. No, I guess if you think about it, there are some defining moments. If I go back, '90s when the cell phone came out, right? First, that's a moment. It feels like I don't know if we've had that moment
Right.
now with what maybe it is with AI, like OpenAI coming out and doing what they've done. Maybe that's the moment we'll look back and reflect that was happening.
Yeah.
COVID seemed to be a moment in time.
Yeah, and is the future of a technology or the application of a technology in any industry, and then the later adoption by other industries? Is that so? That's where, yeah, it's. I feel as though most industries can be forward and future looking by adopting what others on the forefront are doing in new and novel ways, right? Taking and applying these advanced technologies in ways that others haven't done it before is a way for us to propel and be futuristic in our industry.
Okay, I gotcha. Jeff?
I think the future is smarter regardless, no matter what. I think that, I mean, it might be a hot take on it, but even in FISEC, before we had computer vision, we were less smart. Before we had biometric devices, we were less smart. The future is always smarter. What's interesting is that the future is going to be extremely smarter because of the advent of the LLM and its application to drive agents, which is something that you'll hear me talk about. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the fact that we are now designing software systems that can almost ascertain, maybe reason is maybe not completely reason, but ascertain, make decisions, and sort of emulate what humans do today. Like, the future is definitely smarter, not just in FISEC, but across the board.
Yeah, so this old adage that our industry is slow to adopt, and we've used that as like a badge of honor. But with what's happening currently now and the things that you're talking about and what's the rate of adoption, are we going to be able to hold on to that old adage?
No. In my opinion, it's the first thing I've seen in the industry where we're not slow to adopt. I can't believe how fast, with the proliferation of ChatGPT and what OpenAI did to the consumer market, like, everyone knows what that is now. I think even if you don't have complete AI literacy and you don't exactly know how it works, like, enough people are talking about it, like, there's something special here. Yeah, it might be overhyped. Do we really know exactly how we're going to harness it yet? Across the board, no. But I think enough people see, like, this is probably pretty transformational and powerful and special that, like, we probably need this in FISEC, or we're going to get left behind. Like, it's that big of a thing for us as a people.
It is interesting to think about just the raise of hands of how many people use it collectively within the industry. I don't think there's been many different types of technology that we could have asked for in a recent amount of time that we'd have that many hands go up. So.
Oh, sorry, just one more thing. Yeah. Like, just on, again, I like to compare a lot of things outside of just physical security. I mean, physical security is very important to me, but if we look at, like, on a global scale, like, it's very important. It's gonna be a race to have this technology because you can do a lot of stuff with this technology. So there's gonna be continual investment in this, and you can see how fast, like, the pace at which this kind of AI, agentic AI is moving and exploding is kind of like nothing we've really seen in recent history. Like, it's a little bit crazy.
So on that though, build upon that, if you would, use your imagination, and there's no boundaries to this, so it's your story, but, like, what will the future look like? Like, when we talk about it, how is it defined? And then I'm going to follow it up second with, give it some specifics after you paint just a general picture about Acre. Like, what does that look like? Like,
Yeah.
When I see, VIA, right? That's the beginning of something.
Yeah, it is. So I think creating that 1 acre platform is, I think, fundamental for us to be able to minimize the technical debt that we have and have the greatest starting point possible for Jeff and his team. And then this agent-heavy approach where I think of it as like a toolkit, like what you saw earlier, that you could see that it picked the graphs. You didn't say, give me a star chart or a bar chart or whatever. Jeff said, hey, here's the toolkit that you have, and you discern the best way to present this information, right? So it's very specific to a specific topic. So if we said, hey, go build a house, you've got a screwdriver and a nail and nails and hammer, and they say, well, I don't have concrete capabilities. So that there would be a separate purpose-built agent for that. So having this agent-based architecture with a purpose-driven, fundamental layer around 1 acre, I think is going to set us up to be able to propel further and faster than anybody else with the least amount of technical debt. So we're not trying to put things together with duct tape and everything else, right? So I think that we'll see rapid, especially as the 1 acre vision comes to reality. Sarah's obviously, tempering that a little bit, and I'm not going to speak to the timelines at all. But we're very excited about what that can be. And while right now Jeff is doing things that are very constrained, that we have very high confidence will bring value to the market. It's not really a whim that we're going after. We know factually the type of work that he's doing right now will bring value to the market. It will have a return on investment. And as we bring together access intrusion, video, visitor natively in what we have, as well as all the integrations into all the other platforms, then you start to say, what could the world look like and what if? And I think about when IFTTT, if this then that, I don't know if any of you guys were ever users of that, it was maybe 15, 20 years ago it came out, and it was just a platform for you to be able to tie things together. If my thermostat goes over this, then close my shades and water my dog, right? And so that was really a fun thing for me to do, just tinkering around. But we'll be able to do things like that are far more powerful and not just novel. There is an element of innovation that has to, I think, explore into novelty to see if there's real value to you and our customers and to Acre commercially. But we need to make sure that we're spending the bulk of that time on things that we know commercially will bring value to all of you. So I think we're going to rapidly evolve as we bring our hardware and software stack together, and the reins will kind of get loosened up on Jeff and his team. And I would expect that within the 12 months after that, we'll see some pretty amazing things that we probably hadn't thought of yet.
Yeah, so for me, that's pretty simple. I mean, I think I'm taking a very aggressive view on this. I think that the future generally outside of Acre is a very complex network of agents that are very sophisticated, and we're freed up to do different things with our lives. We move away from SaaS. We might have an explosion of vertical agents like we did in the mid-20, around 2005, 2010. And then for Acre, it's the same thing. Like, I think I would reiterate what Jon said. Like, we want to be very responsible with how we roll agents out and know that we're going to do it in a safe way and that we're going to drive efficiencies and create value for the user. But when I think about the product positioning at Acre, even over the next couple of years, like next 5 years, and then maybe beyond that, like, we certainly want to be pushing the technology forward on how we build agents inside Acre, their usefulness, and how they, there's this whole idea too of if you live in a world where you have very sophisticated, intelligent agents that are core to your product, and other people do too, then integration becomes like, you remove the operational friction of integration, because now you have things that behave like humans, and you ask them to work together with each other, and we get interoperability and all these things that we really care about. So yeah, I mean, it's a big dream, but that's my dream for Acre for sure.
The thing that goes along with the future is building an organization and a culture around it, right? So it's not just Jeff and his team thinking about it, right? We as Acre, every function, every discipline uses AI in some form or fashion. And as that evolves and as an organization gets better and better and more efficient in their mindset and how they do that together, that will naturally help elevate the ideas and elevate the outcomes as well.
Well, you mentioned the foundations, and I think that ties back to this conversation I had around when in the future side, because the hype of AI is not necessarily met the sort of delivery of certain things, and I think the desire for them to be major leap forwards, because we're fundamentally putting the piping and everything that's in place in order for this, that it may feel like one day we wake up, it'll be a leap forward. Yeah. Okay, I got a handful of questions that came out of this. I guess we talk about the future is smarter, but I also hear the word efficient continuously used. So is it actually that the future is smarter, or is the future efficient? Is there a difference? How do I untangle that?
I think that this aligns with the journey from automation to autonomy, right? Which I haven't spoken to Kumar about it, but I could, along with John, I couldn't agree more. That's one of the taglines that I use. And I think that across the whole business landscape, we're going to hear people talk less about digital transformation and more about autonomous transformation. And where I'm going with that is that when you establish the building blocks, you're still in like the beginning of, you're still moving away from automation. So like I've mentioned before, some of the first things we're going to do are automate the mundane. But, and that's going to drive efficiencies, right? So we're going to do efficiency first. Then as we grow and refine the capabilities of on top of those building blocks with agents, and we push autonomy, then we're going to start seeing emerging capabilities that we didn't even know existed, and that's going to be smarter. So like Kumar had a good example, like what if you just ask the building, and with the advent of the LLM, I think we move outside of just manufacturing as a target for this. So what if we just ask the building, like, tell me the best way to secure my facilities and my assets, and like you come up with the idea and you tell me, and then you go take the actions to do that. Like that's a smarter future, if you ask me. Like that goes beyond just making it easier to use Acre access control or more quick, like expediting functions that we already do today. Like that's a whole different level of intelligence.
Yeah, that's really, I hadn't thought of that. And having a human still be able to look over what the suggestion is and say, holy smokes, that's better. I think that is a future that's probably less controversial than some of the other ideas. If you say, okay, I'm going to do intrusion detection with drones flying overhead that is going to be looking at gate detection, and okay, even though he has a valid badge and is a valid face, he's walking assertively in a dangerous fashion towards the door, we should lock him out, but turns out it's raining, right? And so that becomes a lot more difficult for us to figure out what's right. But your example, Jeff, I don't think there's an argument about that. I think that's a brilliant idea.
All right, so let me ask you a question that maybe those sitting in the crowd may have. So if I hear a lot of these things, our industry has been somewhat, actually, if you look at the way that our systems were historically built, they were built for somebody to take them into the market, install them, and then configure them. Basically, everything started, at zero, and it was a channel that took it to a percentage, 80, 90, 100% done, and then the end user would then utilize the system. Mm-hmm. And that's it. From a lot of what you're talking about, the future looks like that the thing that we've self-identified as an industry of how we've done is clearly going to be transforming along the ways on that side. So if I'm sitting in the crowd hearing this, where's my place in that future? And Kumar, if you want to jump in too on this one.
Yeah.
Because I'll give you my opinion on it, but I'd love to maybe. I'll give you mine?
Yeah.
I think the things that we self-identify from the past 30 years have nothing to do with the next 30 in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think it's a refactoring of where we create value. I still think there will be a level of configuration, and as much as we want to automate everything, not everything's going to be automated.
Yeah.
I think there's a different level of serviceability that we'll have to have, and we'll look a lot more like an enterprise software industry. AI is not, until a long time, it's not going to be able to core a door in a lot of ways. So there still will be value that is going to be there. But I still haven't been able to get this out of my head. If all of these things go online and I have all this data, and if I've put thousands and thousands of restaurants in, I've got to believe there's going to be a button one day that says I'm a restaurant, and like 80% of configuration is probably done for what you needed. I also believe, and then it's like our job as an industry to take that next 20% and really make it unique for the customer that they want, versus what I believe has happened historically has been like, I took a product that was made for airports and made it work for restaurants, and they used 10% of the system versus the 90% of what's there. I think the other side of it is that as an enterprise software industry that I think we turn into, there's other services that start to have to be brought in, like ServiceNow and Salesforce and things like that, to where that's value that our channel is helping take the market and configure.
Let's take the example of just coding, right? We all have people who code for us today, right? For example, And coding, you typically, a lot of us would hire computer science, computer engineers, and then eventually evolved into data scientists, then eventually evolved into AI experts. And what's really interesting, it's what came to my mind immediately is that for my previous company, the tagline of the previous company that went from automation to autonomy, the tagline is expanding human possibilities. That's actually the tagline. Because it makes so much sense because data, information, capabilities are growing every single day. But it still takes us as humans to figure out what to do with it. And what's happening is that things are getting there faster. Certain problems are being solved faster, but there's still problems to solve, right? And there's always things that are going to get more efficient, better for us every single day. In innovation, that's how we strike innovation. I think it's pretty interesting to see that. Because if you think about the rate of change, when I joined this industry in 2022, and the industry at that time talked about moving to the cloud, right? Think about how long people were talking about moving to the cloud until 2022. Now what are people talking about? It's like, we're talking about AI. That's 3 years later. So the rate of change is so significant because things are getting more intelligent. And then we realize that things getting more intelligent, you can actually be more efficient. So, but that's people making those decisions, right? That's us saying we have to do those things. And no matter what, you're still going to need devices. You're still going to have to connect. You're going to still bring us together. There's still a hardware perspective there. There's still a labor-intensive aspect. Those things aren't away because those are physical things. Now, how we can be more efficient? We're not even close to tipping, or the iceberg on this one, where we're actually leveraging systems coming together and doing things to a unique value. So, to kind of give some perspective, for me, I think, how we can expand the capabilities that we can do every single day. We do it today in our day-to-day, right? I mean, we used to use the iPhone. Now we're using ChatGPT. I don't even Google anymore. Who Googles? I ChatGPT everything, right? Because it's just way more efficient, right? We're using smarter tools because we're becoming way more efficient. And I'm solving problems faster. And I can tackle the bigger problems sooner, right? I mean, that's the way I look at how we're using AI. And to your point, right, coming from smartness to efficiency, I think they're both tied because the more smart things we do, the more efficient we're going to be, the more problems you can solve and tackle.
I just think it's one of these things too that it's not or, it's and. I think both are happening.
And I look at it both ways because Lee mentioned we have to grow. We have to grow as an organization. I mean, hands down, right? I'm on my team, on their ass every single day to grow. Are you guys not? Right?
Of course.
Okay. Of course you are. But you're trying to grow in every form and fashion too. You probably, how many of you started with 1 or 2 access control vendors? Right? How many do you have now? Why? Why?
Gotta grow.
Because you gotta grow, right? So I think I look at it both sides. You gotta grow, so you joined up with all these players too, right? We gotta grow, so we gotta get aggressive in the market. I think for us to be efficient, we gotta grow with you. What I would like to see in this industry is that we grow together and there's some loyalty behind it together, right? Because I think that way we can drive innovation faster as well. Because we get the feedback loops, we got confidence that we can work together. And I think what I'm seeing as well, it's obvious that private equity is coming in, acquiring companies. And what's happening? What are they saying? They're saying, let's grow ARR. Pick a couple players to focus on. Because when you focus with the right partners, you can grow. And when you grow, you can innovate together. Think about how we all started, right? We started, when Ralph and Paul started, they probably picked a couple players to grow with, to drive loyalty with. Right? I think back at that a lot, honestly, because that's when you got the fastest growth in a lot of cases. When you double down and you click and you focus and we both commit, you see that growth happen, and then you see innovation happen at the same time. To me, that's where I see it going, honestly, because technology needs to evolve at a certain pace, and if you keep picking all these different vendors in different places, I'm not saying pick the right vendor for you. Obviously, we want it to be Acre, but pick the right vendor for you, right? What makes the most sense, how your team's trained up, And do you see a future with them and growing? Because you know it's going to evolve.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you both.